Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you from the WELT studios. We're back. We actually recorded last week.
We did, and it was a hell of a
show. A file saving issue, so it did not save properly, so we lost the file. And it was a great episode. We will do our best because we're still going to lead with the same topic, talking about the Indy 500 entry list and who will fill it out, the likelihood of no bumping, which last week we discussed. We were looking at the possibility of still having bumping on the table. And we'll preview the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach as IndyCar returns to the streets of SoCal. Looking forward to this weekend. I always, yes, the Indy 500 is, of course, the hallmark event. But, this is a close second to me every year. Not necessarily, I think, because of the race. Because the races are usually just kind of ho-hum a lot of times. Right. We have good racing at the front often, but it's, it's hard to pass. It's a street course. But the spectacle, the scenery, the fact that it's, we're in the thick of spring now and just a little over a month away from the 500. I just feel like the vibes are perfect for this event.
It does feel, if anything, Long Beach makes you feel that Indy is upon us.
Yes.
And that's not taking anything away from Long Beach, but it's a great event, not the greatest race, but it also is hey, one, that the Indy 500 is close. And then for us too, it's okay, this is really we're getting into the thick of the season, right? Because sometimes we only have a couple races before Long Beach.
Yeah.
Right? We're a little bit further along in 2026, thankfully. But by and large, this is a race that really signifies a lot of things. And we're looking forward to it. You never really have to worry about weather at Long Beach.
No.
You never have to check.
No, the weather is fine. It will be nice, low to mid 70s like it is basically every single year. What a world.
Yeah, what a world. What a place to live, right?
Yeah.
You just don't even have to check the weather. But always the obligatory shots of the Queen Mary I always enjoy as well. So
and the fountain and just Shoreline Drive, the roller coaster in the background.
Definitely.
The crowds at Bubba Gump Shrimp Company.
Yes, right.
Overlooking the track.
The high rises with people on their balconies of places we could never afford. It's just all the things. So looking forward to Long Beach weekend.
For sure. We'll preview Long Beach a bit later on, but we'll dive into what we discussed last week and transition it to what we know this week. And that is talking about the Indy 500 entry list and the fact that we now know, after we had recorded last week, bumping still a possibility. Now we know it is very unlikely we will have bumping for the 2026 Indy 500. Jacob Abel expected to be the 32nd entry. Is there a chance we have that confirmed this week, or do you think they'll just show up at the open test?
I mean, are they even going to be at the open test?
Also a good question.
It's listed on Wikipedia, so it's got to be true, right?
Right.
Towards Jacob Abel. Until I see them there's always a chance that they won't be there. So until I get concrete confirmation, it's tough to count them. By and large, I mean, they'll probably be there, but you never know.
You do never know. So last week it was announced that Colton Herta would not be participating in the Indy 500 due to F2's schedule changing. They're going to have a North American swing with Miami and Montreal, so that takes Herta off the table. And for a brief period, we thought, Andretti could still have a fourth entry. Well, that fell by the wayside within, an hour? And so here we are, no fourth Andretti car. Prima now expected not to be in the Indy 500, even though they are still staffing in their shop with the crew, according to Zion Brown of the Indy Star, IndyStar.com. He had a story last week talking about this, which was kind of so who's paying them? Pierce Phillips obviously in charge of the IndyCar side. Who's paying them? Where's the money coming from? And what are they prepping if they simply don't have, any funding? They have all the, I guess they can work on the cars, right? But you can't pay for anything new.
Yeah, I mean, is Pierce Phillips paying him out of his pocket? I don't know. It's very much Pierce Phillips' baby, right now.
Yes.
I think it's been a baby from the jump, and he got Prema on board, and now he's trying to save it. And we'll probably get a little bit more into that later. But I don't know whose coffers are paying these employees. Maybe it's Phillips himself. Who knows? But they're still at work. I don't know what they're doing.
Right?
At work. But they are at work, apparently.
And then we look at other possibilities. So Catherine Legg probably in the driver's seat for the 33rd entry. We have 15 Honda entries, 17 Chevy, that including Abel as part of that. So we would actually expect this to be a Chevy entry to get to 33. And options, I mean, we expect it to be Foyt. One, because she had Larry Foyt on her podcast the other week. And Foyt usually steps up in these situations. I'm sure they're waiting to get the maximum check from the series out of it to be that 33rd. Beyond that, Devlin DeFrancesco mentioned, Stephen Wilson mentioned, kind of the same names usually mentioned as possibilities. And really, that's about it. I mean, it just comes down to when will this get announced? Could it get announced this weekend? It wouldn't surprise me if it is.
You would want them there for the open test, which is next week or 2 weeks?
It's like two Monday and Tuesdays from now, the 28th and 29th. So, and that will be streaming on YouTube, by the way.
Which is nice, but you'd want them on board and officially, hopefully, turning laps at the open test, but we'll see. But we're looking now at 33. We're not getting any more than 33, and that's brought a lot of discussion on the socials and even questions to Doug Bowles about the future of bumping at the Indianapolis 500. Now, to be fair, Doug Bowles said, well, if we had Prema, which we expected Prema to continue, we would have 2 more cars, and then we expected Colton Herta. So, yeah, you could say we would have bumping if we had those, which was kind of out of IndyCar's control. But then again, would Abel Motorsports have jumped in if there weren't secured spots to start the 500?
I think they would have, because they own their own chassis. They got an engine lease from Chevy. They have a driver, so they have the funding, the other key aspect. So they have the trifecta, and we'll kind of dive into all of that and these factors. In fact, Marshall Pruitt, in one of his stories on Racer, talking about Prema, basically said IndyCar was holding back the 2 Chevy leases and then release those because Prema's not going to return for the 500. They say they could be back later in 2026. I'll believe it when I see it. They're going to need to find a buyer. And the expectation continues to be Jacob Abel in one of those Chevy leases and then an AJ Foyt entry in the other.
Yeah, I think they waited too long to release those engine leases.
Mm-hmm. They should have really stuck to that April 1st deadline.
Right. Yeah, and even then could have potentially been too late. Who knows? But when you look at what bumping means to the 500, and a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, and not saying they're right or wrong, but in our opinion, bumping is a huge aspect of what the month of May has been and still is, or at least the 2 weeks of May. You take bumping out of the equation, and some people say, well, come race day, it doesn't matter. And yeah, that's true. But if the preceding 2 weeks or previously the month of May doesn't matter, then why do we have it? I mean, the point of the month of May and a month worth of practice, and now condensed down to 1 week of practice, is all about making sure you're starting the Indianapolis 500. You make the field. And anything from, a Wednesday crash, we've seen it time and time again, puts you behind, and trying to either fix the car, bring out a backup, and try to find the speed in the backup, or you start Tuesday slow and stuff like that. That's the drama that you and I enjoy. You take that away, the week of practice in my opinion, is pointless.
It's a formality, right?
Because everybody is starting the race. And so you have the 2-day open test, and I know everybody's refining their car for race day, but you can start doing that on Tuesday. I mean, you can work on qualifying pace, but by and large, you're in the race. And that takes away such a core element of what the Indianapolis 500 has meant for 110 years. Right? I just, because the goal is always to start this race, to qualify for this race. And it's never been easy, but it is easy when you don't have any bumping.
And it's been relatively easy outside of 2 or 3 years since this formula was introduced, with Chevy and Honda, and then at the beginning Lotus. And then Chevy and Honda, since 2011, last year of that chassis, you had 40 entries. I think technically you had 41 drivers, but 40 entries as Scott Speed and Ho-Pin Tung, and Patrick Carpentier, right? All kind of shared a car or something. But since then, we've had 33 or 34. Majority of the years we had 35 in 2018. We had 36 in 2019. And then I think you got to go back to, was it 21 where they also had 35 again? And that was a 35 that included R.C. Enerson in Top Gun and then Charlie Kimball, who both those guys just never had the speed. And I get that the people say, well, bumping doesn't matter as much because that's an example, where it's kind of like, okay, these guys aren't going to make it. They were behind. But you look at other years and you look at Dragon Speed, right? And they found the pace we thought, they may not qualify, right? And that would have been, 21 with Ben Hanley?
Gosh, man, it seems like longer than 21, doesn't
right?
it?
But they were on they're going to get bumped, guaranteed list. And,
yeah, everybody.
He qualifies mid-pack.
Because I think there were, 2 bumped that year, and everybody had Ben Hanley as one of them.
Yes.
In that year. So, look, there's...
Yeah, Charlie Kimball. So 21 actually was the year that had in Hanley. Let's see, where did he qualify?
Gosh, he was in the teens, wasn't he?
I think so.
Early 20s. He was it 18th, 19th? I want to say. He was up there. He was comfortably in. Maybe he ended up being in the 20s by the time all the qualifying was done, but.
You know what? That's the wrong year. I was like, that seems further ago than it was. I think this may have been 22 that this happened. But nonetheless, if I can find it, because I'm struggling to find it, of course.
Well, I just, as you're looking, it's just, I go back to, it means so much to this race. And what the concerning thing to me this year is the discussion of, does bumping matter? And the signs that we see and other fans see that 33 could be the norm going forward because the charters lock you in, right? We've talked about it ad nauseum about how exclusive IndyCar is becoming for season entries, let alone Indy 500 only entries. And when people start asking, does bumping matter? My concern is enough people will say, no, it doesn't matter, that we don't see it anymore.
We've gone almost a generation of it not really having much of an impact. And Hanley was 2019, so he beat out Alonso, which no one ever would have fathomed that happening with McLaren coming in. Pato O'Ward, who was a rookie then with Carlin, and Max Chilton, who was also with Carlin. Hanley was 2019, also in 2020, where they had 33. Obviously, they're going to get a pass on that year. But you look at bumping and what it means. It's a story, right? We all remember Kyle Kaiser because he bumped Fernando Alonso, right? We all remember James Hinchcliffe and his team making a mistake and they couldn't make another run. They get bumped out in 2018. Graham Rahal getting bumped out, in 24? And battling the last row shootout for several years. Penske in 95, which we'll get more on that a bit later on because I think that has a huge impact on where we're at today with the series and bumping in the Indianapolis 500. It means something just to make the race. The problem is the last nearly 15 years, because making the race is a given, you're even seeing press releases where, or the word speak coming out of broadcasters is, oh yeah, you're in the Indy 500 before qualifying begins.
Right.
That's not how this is supposed to work. That's never how this has worked.
Right. And so I know traditions have gone by the wayside at the Indianapolis 500 over the years.
RIP balloon launch.
But if you're trying to tell me the balloon launch means as much as bumping into the field, I would have to cry foul. Bumping has been a cornerstone of this event, the month of May, now the 2 weeks of May. Race day, yeah, if you're just a race day fan and you don't care anything about what leads up to it, then yeah, you probably don't care about bumping. But if the format continues, then why do we even need a week of practice? Just make it a weekend. Just have Fast Friday and then Saturday qualifying and Sunday the race. If the race is the only thing that matters to certain people, then why do we have all this lead up?
The whole point of all the practice time is because you have to qualify, and qualifying is hard. It's not just, we pick a 2-lap average or the best of your 2 laps or whatever. No, it's 4 laps. And because of the format, you have to do it a million times. And it's not just a simple 3 attempts and you're out like it used to be. So, you have all this track time for 33 entries. In a way, if you're IMS, it's a massive waste of money. For the teams, it's a massive waste of money to only have 33. That's another part. And I didn't even think of this last week. So this is new, good, organic
content.
Organic content, unique and organic, as they say, that we have here for this week. If you're going to have a full week of practice, but only have 33 entries, what's the point? The series is wasting money. The teams are wasting money. The Speedway is they blow money every time the gates are open. So, who is this benefiting? I guess it benefits the drivers because they have nothing on the line, but that's they don't even want that, right? I mean, that's not what the event's about. That's not what this sport's about. Racing is about competition. IMS was built as a proving grounds for the automobile. What are we proving when we have no bumping? What are we proving when it's 33 entries and everyone gets in? This is racing. This isn't participation trophies for your son or daughter's Little League team. This is racing. It's supposed to be hard, and we're making it way too easy right now.
And this is more, I think we're preaching to the choir to a fair amount of listeners.
I would say it's a 75-25.
But I also am hopeful that the series recognizes the importance of bumping and makes sure this trend doesn't continue. And this was a quote from Doug Bowles in an interview with James Krause of the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, who was asked about the field, and the question was bothersome, and that is bumping important. Anybody that asks if bumping is still important at the Indianapolis 500 bothers me, because I guess the question needs to be asked because the concern is maybe it doesn't matter to Indy 500.
Oh, that's what they've shown over the last decade plus, is that it's not as important.
But Doug Bowles responding to the question in part, quote, "I'm not saying that to say that we don't need it," talking about bumping, "because I believe we need it. But to me, the most important thing has got to be 33. Then when we get to next year, we have to make sure we have bumping," end quote. Again, we have to make sure we have bumping. You're shaking your head.
That's kicking the can down the road. That's a cop-out answer. And we all love Doug. Doug does a great job as the president of IMS, president of IndyCar. He is really good at saying the right thing with the right PR speak, only because he has a PR background as well. He's great at saying the right thing, but to me that response is a deflection. That is, yeah, we don't have it this year, but next year it's important to us. We want it back. Okay, what's the plan to make sure that it actually comes back? You need to have a plan, and the series and IMS need to make a lot of changes for this to actually happen and be a real thing. And I'm not talking 34, I'm talking 35, 36 and beyond. That's the spot we need to be in. And it's not just the economy and economics and whatnot. There are so many factors that go into this. So let's look at the factors. We talked about the trifecta. You have to have a team, right? You have to have a chassis, and you have to have an engine lease, let alone the fact you have to have a driver and sponsorship. But those are the three things. The problem with the setup right now is that the full-time teams control having the chassis. They control having the engine lease. And so they can pick whatever driver who brings a sponsor or whatnot to the table, and then they can add to their team. We have a system where the full-time teams, which we have, 11, right?
Yeah.
Sans Primo now. I don't think they're coming back anytime soon. So they can essentially fill up the grid. It used to be where you had, and not just fill up the grid, but they're running 3 or 4 cars. So that takes up a bulk of, kind of the one-off type entries that we used to have a lot more of. And I'm talking true one-offs, not, a 4th car on a big team like Andretti, for example. So when the full-time teams control having the extra chassis, when they control having the other engine leases for the event, that makes it basically impossible for these true one-off teams outside Dry and Reinbold to actually put together an entry. And on one sense, if you're Honda or Chevy, yeah, you're going to go with a more sure thing in terms of a full-time participation team because they're paying you more money and they're going to have more resources. But on the other hand, it's everything is working together to protect the full-time teams. And here's a perfect example. You look at Penske, and I'm talking Penske Racing, not Penske in charge of IMS, which this does tie into that. But you look at Penske in 95. So fresh off a dominant year in the Indy 500 in 1994, we all know Alan Sir Jr., Emerson Fittipaldi missed the race. They tried other chassis beyond the Penske chassis. Nothing worked. And that's back when we had multiple chassis suppliers. Now, fast forward to now, Penske, the IMS and IndyCar owner, put the ownership hat on. He owns a team. He hears from the full-time team owners, because we essentially only have full-time team owners now in the sport outside of Dry and Reinbold for the Indy 500, and they want to protect their assets. So what benefit does it give for Roger Penske, who also owns a full-time team, to let one-off entries come in who aren't tied to these full-time participants to even have a chance? And so everything is working against bumping, because the system, the country club, as I call it, of owners have basically eliminated bumping so they don't have to risk anything. And in business, you want to avoid risk, right? But for IMS and the Indianapolis 500, bumping is a good thing. Bumping means you have something to tout on TV on Sunday as part of the broadcast, not just the run for the pole. So now you've essentially clipped half of your on-track programming for Sunday's Fox qualifying Day 2 broadcast.
And it's part of the uniqueness of the Indianapolis
Yes.
500, right? You have to bump your way. You have to prove that you deserve to start this race. And it goes back decades to the beginning, right? You have to prove you are one of the fastest cars to start this race. And if you don't have to do that anymore, then it takes away a big part, in our opinion, of the special feel of this event.
It's not true competition, right, if you're taking that away.
And basically, what IndyCar right now, Roger Penske, Penske Corp, and the team owners is they do not want to see a full-time entry bumped from this field because it's not good for business, right? For their business. They do not want to see. And here's another thing to consider, because going back to Doug Bolt's quote, and okay, next year it's important. Let's say Prema returns with 2 cars. But look at this. In terms of the extra cars entered by full-time teams, they're all legacy drivers. How much longer is Takuma Sato going to want to race in this event? Because if he goes away, who's to say Ray Hall runs another car? You run a 2-time winner, right, in an extra car. What about Elio Castroneves? You run a 4-time winner at Meyer Shank. How much longer is Elio going to want to do this? It's natural. Of course, we're going to run him for a drive for 5 every time he wants to. But when he starts not wanting to, who's to say Meyer Shank runs that car as an extra?
Well, their third car will turn into the Honda factory entry.
That's true. But
then you have Ryan Hunter-Reay. Same thing.
Same thing. I mean, Ed Carpenter. How long is Ed Carpenter going to want to do this? And all of a sudden,
all these guys can run as long as they want to, but that as long as they want to is up in less than 5 years, most likely, outside of Elio and Ed, because they're car owners. Elio owns, that entry essentially.
Correct, but he's old. I mean, he's 50 years old. I mean, he looks amazing. And as long as he's competitive, he's still going to do it. But he's also 50 years old. He could say, this is my last Indy 500. Does Shank then run that car? Now, you mentioned the factory entry. Well, they can just shrink. And I guess that would be the third car. That would make sense. But the other instances, Ryan Hunter-Reay, who's to say McLaren wants to keep going and run a fourth entry every year? Maybe if they continue to fall short in the 500, they're going to be like, you know what, we're just going to focus on our 3 full-timers because we got to get one of these guys in victory lane, namely Pato O'Ward. But Takuma Sato, once he's done, is that car continue as an entry? Ed Carpenter, once he's done, does that car continue? So these extra cars by full-time teams aren't a given every single year. In fact, when you start breaking them down, there's concern that eventually the drivers in those seats are going to be done and they may not be replaced. And then all of a sudden, the Premas that come along are just merely replacing the extra cars that the full-time teams aren't running. And as you get into new cars and potentially shrinking fields, right, the extra cars, the extra chassis sitting around aren't as prevalent. So there's just a combination of things that long-term this is a concern. And the fact that we both feel that it's not a concern within IndyCar, at least the ownership, to us is very concerning because this event has been defined over the decades by the fact that you need to be good to even start this race. And if you don't have to be good to even start this race, it takes a big part of this event away. And people will say, well, they're back markers anyway. In his first year, Fernando Alonso could have won the Indianapolis 500. In the second year, he gets bumped. Right? So it's not just bums that are back there, right?
Yeah, we've seen Penske's get bumped, Bobby Rahal get bumped. The list goes on and on.
I mean, James Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, James Hinchcliffe. I mean,
these aren't just bum drivers and bum cars. Sometimes you just don't have it on that weekend and that day. And if that's not a factor, and some people have tried to come up with, you could have a last row shootout to make 10 through 12, for the fast 12 and whatever. Look, it doesn't matter in this race whether you start 16th or 10th. We've had 2 winners from each starting position. So teams aren't going to risk their cars to make the fast 12 if they don't have the speed to get up into the top 5. If you're running 15th in pace, you're probably not competing for the pole anyway.
No.
Later in the day, right? Or whatever, if you have that last row shootout, quote unquote, on Saturday. You can win this race from 16th, just like you can from 8th, just like you can from 6th, just like you can from 1st. So that's the thing. If you're trying to add drama that doesn't need it, that's the thing, is you're taking away the desire for some of these teams to run. And I think you're going to get into a case where what's the incentive to go out on Wednesday of practice? What's the incentive to go out Thursday for practice?
Especially because it's the same car we've had for years and years and years, right?
You got data,
they used to have a true month of May, and then they cut it down to 2 weeks. But we had changes on the car. I mean, we had a streak where you had, in 2012, the new car, and then you have that same kind of look for a couple years, and then you have the Aero Kit era, 15, 16, 17. Then you have a revamped car in 18. Then they added the advanced frontal protection, in 2019. Then 2020, you have the Aero screen. So you actually had a lot of changes in that decade in terms of the car, even though it's essentially been the same chassis the entire time. The Aero kit, the Aero pieces have changed quite a bit. Now it's basically the same thing. That's been the same thing. You go back to 2020. So and we get it. They say, well, stuff can be very different. The stuff that worked last year doesn't work there. So yes, but there's so much money being spent here, and you look at, the teams what incentive when you know you're going to make the race to go all out to try to qualify, right? I mean, unless you have an opportunity for the pole.
And even then, if you're in seventh, on Sunday at Fast 12, how much are you really going to push? I know the race car drivers.
The racers will want to race, but I'm talking the teams.
Right, but the teams are like, we're going to start seventh, and that's fine. Or we're going to start 13th. We're not pushing it to try to get that Fast 12 because we're going to be fine. And I know different conditions, right, in terms of practice week. You want to be ready for all different kind of conditions and wind and all that because you never know what it's going to be race day. I get it, but at the same time, you're just not being pushed because of the threat, particularly if you put it in the wall on a Tuesday or Wednesday that you're chasing it the rest of the week. That's the drama. That's the intrigue that sells us on this event, at least a lot of people, and you take it away and it's a bummer. And you kind of brought it up with the chassis. We've had this thing for 15 years and we can barely get to 33. In 2 years, we have a new chassis and not a lot of spare chassis are going to be out there because teams got to buy new chassis, both and spare tubs, right, for the entire season. So if we can barely get to 33 now, what's it look like in 2 years?
It's a real concern. And it almost feels like it's scarcity by design. We have one chassis manufacturer, you have one tire supplier, and you have two OEMs. But you have to buy an engine lease and costs a lot of money. Even just for the Indy 500, you're looking at over $1 million, most likely. So you throw in those factors, and yeah, of course we're not getting many entries because the system is created where it doesn't allow for expansion. You have your own 25-8 rule. You have the 25 chartered entries, and then you have, of those 25, the teams that want to run an extra entry, and then you have Dry and Reinbold, and that's it. And you look at what Penske's done since he took over, like, yeah, the facilities look great, but what are you doing to expand the Indy 500? I know people say, well, you've had multiple ticket sellouts. They found a way to get through COVID and have fans in 2021. Yes, I get that. But for the Indy 500 to truly be back, we need to have more than 33 entries on a consistent basis. And I think Penske is haunted forever by what happened in 1995. And you can't tell me that doesn't influence his decision-making here in 2026 as the leader of IndyCar and IMS, because he wants to make sure to protect his full-time entries and the other full-time team owners' entries. Remember, they floated having locked-in spots for full-time teams, and fans revolted, and rightfully so. But at the same time, a lot of fans are like, "Oh, bumping's not that important." But like, this is how this happens. It's a slow creep into them being locked in, and so instead of saying, "Oh, we're going to have locked-in entries for full-time teams," well, they're just going to limit it to 33, so they don't have to worry about it. There's no public PR outcry.
Yeah, it's effectively locked in, right?
Yes.
I mean, you have basically it's the 30-3 rule. You have 30 cars right now for, or you will 30 cars for full-time teams and 3 out Indy-only entries with Dry and Reinbold's 2 and Able Motorsports 1. I think when you look at the priorities of the series, they say, hey, look, we're selling out the 500. We had great ratings last year. We have to make sure the full-time teams are as financially stable as possible. Those are the trifecta of priorities. Everything else is secondary. And one of those secondary things is bumping at the Indianapolis 500. And that's why we're in a position we are. So, if, that the counterpoint is, well, race day is still amazing. People are coming. People are tuning in. The ratings for qualifying weekend aren't stellar. We're not getting the crowds we used to get for qualifying. So I guess that's not as important as long as we deliver on race day.
Here's why it's still important. Who owns a third of the series?
Fox.
Who televises all the races in Indy 500 qualifying?
Fox, last I checked.
Who has a stake in making sure that weekend is important and impactful and still relevant in 2026 and beyond?
Fox.
There you go. So Fox should want this to have bumping and add intrigue, not just the pole shootout. IMS should want this to have bumping and have intrigue because that helps sell more tickets. To have qualifying sell more tickets, doesn't that benefit the Speedway? And therein, it also benefits the series. Look, having more drivers and more teams interested in the Indy 500 only helps the Indy 500 and IndyCar and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And ultimately, that's what this is about. IndyCar needs to continue to make sure they can do everything they can to allow drivers in other series who want to participate to have a shot, like we saw with Kyle Larson just a couple years ago, like we've seen, previously with Kurt Busch, like we've seen with Fernando Alonso, so on and so forth. Hopefully other drivers in the future like Connor Zilisch and Kyle Busch and others. But you got to go out of your way to make sure. And having this restricted kind of country club thought process like we've had in IndyCar since Penske took over, we thought, oh, wow, everything's going to be great. The 500 is going to be back. And I think race day's back, but I don't think everything else is back. We thought that IndyCar would grow, and yes, it has grown, but I would attribute that more to Fox and what they've done than what Penske Entertainment has necessarily done. We thought we'd have an expanded schedule, and once again, yes, we have that, but I would give Fox a lot of credit for that as well. And then we thought we'd have a third OEM. Well, that still has not happened. So we're getting things are getting there. We're getting an IndyCar video game, allegedly. We have the big race in DC, and we're adding new events, like Arlington. We're maintaining our marquee events like the 500 in Long Beach and so on. And we're getting a new car. But it's all part of the process, and making sure your event is open. The Indy 500 was about open competition, right? And using the rule book and trying to find those advantages. And now it just seems like it's a closed competition that you're either in the club or you're not. And that's where we're at with bumping in 2026.
And I don't like the approach to be like, well, let's just be thankful we have what we have, because, yes, IndyCar is in an exponentially better spot than it was in even 5 years ago, the year after the pandemic, and definitely 10 years ago, right? So, yeah, we're thankful, but we're also the series should not rest on its laurels and just be happy with what it has, particularly at the biggest race in the world. And I will say it repeatedly that one of the reasons why the Indianapolis 500 is the greatest race in the world is because it is extremely difficult to start that race. Like I said earlier, you have to be good to start that race, or at the very least, you should be good to have to be able to start that race. And with 33, you don't have to be. And I think, as appreciative as we are of Able Motorsports, that's the team I look at.
Yes, and something I said last week.
You had a great point.
If you're a full-time team or a team that has access to a chassis and an engine lease, and you look at Able Motorsports, and you're like, hold on, we have a rookie team with a driver who has yet to qualify for the Indy 500, is still a rookie because he didn't qualify, technically, right? And you're going to tell me we're just going to let that happen? Like, racing should be about competition. If I'm a team, I should add an extra car just so I can bump them out. And then you'll say, well, then we won't have these one-off entries. No, it will encourage it, because Abel's going to want to come back. Look, they want to make this work. So
father and son want to make this,
yes,
particularly father. That's why he's got deep pockets to make this.
So, like, this should be a no-brainer. You look at other teams. I mean, the possibility of Prema last year, we all thought they were going to be, struggling, and they get the pole. You look at Rahal, you think they should be fast, but outside of Takuma Sato, they seem to struggle every year. The coin entries. Last year they struggled, and that was with having Rinus VeeKay, who's an ace around the speedway, in one of their entries. This year they have Romain Grosjean, who is so on ovals, not a lot of oval experience in his couple of years at IndyCar, and then a rookie in Dennis Hauger. Like, this should be setting it up if you're wanting to add an extra entry or enter in for the first time. Hey, we have an opportunity here. And instead it's going to be, we're stuck at 33, and we have probably up to half a dozen entries that could actually be fighting on bump day, and instead there's no fight. And that's disappointing.
I mean, look, this really, for me, look, I'm going to be watching the open test, and I'll have the full week of practice on, and carb day, obviously.
Yeah, we're diehards. We're going to watch regardless.
Is there still Monday after pole day? Practice,
I think so.
Right? For me, the only ones I really truly care about, are Monday and Friday. Carb day, and then the Monday after pole day. I And I know people are big on. I'm not. I couldn't care less. As long as you're starting in the top 25, you have a great chance of winning this race. So for me, there's just not intrigue on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of practice. Oh, Fast Friday. Who's going to show speed? Okay, I guess. Everybody's making the race. It's just, for me, it really, really affects my interest level in the lead up to the 500. Of course, race day is going to be great, right? But to me, the lead up just doesn't hit as hard. Really, the only practices that matter are the ones after qualifying, because everybody's in race trim after that.
My last thought on this, and we'll move on, preview Long Beach and talk happy stuff in IndyCar.
Okay.
My last thought is the Indy 500 can't truly be back when we're still talking about IMS and Penske Entertainment, whoever's in charge. You know, this happened in the previous era under the Holman George family and Tony George and others, where teams are holding out, not wanting to be that 33rd entry because they want to get the biggest check possible from series leadership and ownership. So we're in that situation right now in 2026, which feels hard to believe. And until that changes, then I can't say it's truly back. Yes, race day's back, but race day's been back for several years now. You can go back to about 2022 for that. But the event as a whole needs legitimate entries that aren't being funded by the series to fill the field. Less field filling and more true competition. That's what makes the Indy 500 and Indy 500 qualifying and bumping so unique. And that's where the sport needs to get to and strive for in the future.
Okay.
Let's talk Long Beach. The Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach in Long Beach, California. One of our favorite events on the schedule, not because the racing is normally spectacular, but just because, as we talked about at the show open, it's just an amazing event as a whole. And first, let's talk about all the amazing new liveries for this race.
Quite a few.
Yes, quite a few. So you have Scott McLaughlin in the AAA Travel livery for the first time. You have several, Alex Palou in the Open AI entry. They were with him, at Mid-Ohio last year, so it'll be Long Beach and DC this year. A little bit more blue accents on that livery. And then an interesting note on the partnership with Ganassi and OpenAI. They've been a season-long associate sponsor since the start of last season. But it's not just those two races that they're sponsoring. Also, in play is that a documentary project is looming, courtesy of Rob Wills, director of Netflix's Formula One Drive to Survive. That's part of the partnership, that per Joey Barnes of motorsport.com. So that's really cool. Also, among the very cool liveries, you have so Liquid Science, which is under the Java House brands. It's kind of like their Gatorade type thing for Rossi and Rasmussen. So bright blue colors there. Allegra back on the car for Marcus Ericsson. Desnuda Tequila back with Louis Foster, black and white car. I think this one, there are a few that are really cool, but Mick Schumacher's Liquid Death car, in another consumer brand. Have you ever had Liquid Death, by the way?
I have not.
It's pretty good.
Is it just water?
Yeah. It's water in a can that's carbonated.
Oh, it's carbonated. Like, it doesn't have any flavor?
No, it has flavor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's good, though. But, I mean, this car is amazing. It's got gold, white, and black. You have Green Day and Acura with Felix Rosenquist, so Green Day Sirius XM channel. You have the Remax livery with Marcus Armstrong for the first time. Rinus VeeKay back in the Arco car that we saw at Phoenix as well. So a lot of livery changes. These cars are going to look great. Each week it seems like we get more and more consumer brands, which is a great thing for IndyCar.
Yeah, and I think the Green Day drummer is the Grand Marshal on Sunday, I want to say. So I'm texting my son right now, who's a huge Green Day fan, and say, hey, maybe you should tune in. There's going to be a Green Day car, and the drummer is going to be on from Green Day.
Taking a look at the schedule. So we're recording this Friday morning. Practice one coming up Friday night, at least Eastern. 6 Eastern on FS1, Fox 1, all the regular channels. Saturday schedule, practice 2 on FS2, 1:30 Eastern. Qualifying 6:30 Eastern on FS1, and then Sunday the warm-up show back 1 o'clock Eastern on FS1, and then the race coverage is supposed to start at 5:30 on Fox. However,
fingers crossed
on that, because Cup is at Kansas Speedway? Is that right?
No idea where they're at.
But they're the lead-in. So IndyCar has a NASCAR lead-in. So keep that in mind.
Which can be good as long as it ends on time.
Yes. The scheduled green flag, I believe, is 5:57 for IndyCar, but just keep in mind if Cup goes long, IndyCar will be pushed back, but I don't think that will be an issue for once. I think that will only help the TV rating. So you look at it, and I'm thinking 1 million is way too low of a benchmark. Do we see something close to a St. Pete level? Do we flirt with 1.5 million for this race?
It's tough for me to say 1.5 million. My hope is I'll say 1.2. If we can get comfortably over the 1 million mark back, it would be nice. A little worry. I know it was a special circumstance last year, but the low rating we had for Long Beach last year, I think it Long Beach means a lot to racing purists, but to casual fans, it doesn't really. So that's my concern. As long as Cup gets out the way at the right time, we should see over 1 million. That's at least what I'm hoping. But hey, I'll take 1.5 million as well.
Remember, in 2025, this race did not draw very well. It was 552,000. Now that was up against the Masters final round.
True.
So that's why.
Doesn't help.
No, it does not help. So we should see a boost. Okay, let's look at our 3 key stats, courtesy of Chad 200. First off, Alex Blow finished top 5 in all 5 starts, has never won or qualified on pole. 3.4 average finish is the best in Long Beach history, minimum 3 starts. Will Power leads all active drivers in wins with 2, poles with 3, podiums with 7, laps led 187, top 5s with 8, has not finished outside the top 10 since 2017. Scott McLaughlin and Pato Award combined 11 starts, 3 top 10s, 1 top 5, 0 wins, 0 laps led, 14.2 average finishing position. That's shocking because I think of those two as being true contenders on Sunday. So let's make our picks. And as always, all season long, we're not picking Alex Palou.
Correct.
Who do you think wins? I think we're going to agree on the same driver.
I don't know if we do.
Oh, okay. Who do you think wins?
This team needs a win. And this driver has shown speed and aptitude on street courses and road courses with 2 podiums and a 7th at Arlington. I say Christian Lundgaard wins the Grand Prix of Long Beach.
Okay, I'm going to go with the boring answer and Kyle Kirkwood because he is the new king of the beach, at least in the modern era of IndyCar. And an interesting fact talking about Kirkwood and Palou from Jefferson Kern, who covers IndyCar on Band TV in Brazil. Palou versus Kirkwood, difference of 2 points in the championship. They finished 1 and 2 last year. The next 6 races, including Long Beach, so Long Beach, the Indy GP, Indy 500, Detroit, St. Louis, and Road America, were won by them in 2025. So keep that in mind for this stretch of races because they were hot during that stretch last year, and who knows, maybe they could pull something off similar again this year. So that's our preview of Long Beach. And with that, let's get into mailbag here in a bit. If you agree or disagree with us on bumping, we'd love for you to let us know. You can always find us on social media, IndyCar Podcast, the handle on Twitter /X, also on Instagram, on Facebook. Just search for New Track Record. You can email us, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your questions, comments, rants, concerns. You can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. Thanks to Gene, Rob, Reed, and others for their support. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. Mailbag time, and a lot of thoughts on bumping, and rightfully so. I mean, why wouldn't we have a lot of thoughts on bumping? So let's go back, and we have several From Snarky Moose, S2000 _Moose, said, I've been following the Indy 500 since 1964. It's not the same without a lot of things. Balloons, for one, but bumping is superficially at best. Says, I was pulled into the 500 by innovation, specifically the turbine car. Why don't we bring innovation back? I have a suggestion. Initiate an IndyCar version of the Le Mans Garage 56. Remember, that's what NASCAR did a couple years ago at Le Mans.
Yep.
And then he adds, let's say we create a category for special entries. The idea would be to have cars powered by our alternative fuels, like fuel cells, batteries, etc., or maybe for special needs drivers, like needing hand controls, such as Robert Wickens. This is how it could work. Look, I would love to see Wickens have an entry and be back in the Indy 500. I don't know if that would be the race where he would make his return. It would probably be, maybe a road course. But yes, innovation used to be a hallmark of the Indy 500. That has not been a hallmark of the Indy 500 for 30 years.
Yeah.
Since the split, basically.
Yeah, a long time. It's, as we talked about, with the current ownership and team owners, they're not going to welcome anything that changes the status quo.
Correct. Which is unfortunate, but that's where we're at. Okay, you had posted, it matters to fans, but not enough to IndyCar to ensure at least 34 entries. Says a lot about series owners. And, of course, a lot of responses here.
Which I think some people took it as the series team owners.
No. Penske Entertainment.
Owners of the series.
Yes, correct.
So I could have been better at wording that.
Hickey93, friend of the show, said, I don't know if this is meant to be a put-down. I view this as basic math. Why would you, as an owner, put in the effort for an extra entry just to risk it being bumped? Every team already puts forth 2+ entries. Well, except Abel. It's not like a team that's flush is just sitting with one entry listed. Again, that's talking about car owners, and I understand car owners. It's different. Tyler _Allen, maybe he's mad because everyone booed them wanting guaranteed spots for regulars, so now they just limit it to 33. Exactly what we said.
Right.
I really think that was the plan. They wanted to do that, and then it had so much pushback publicly, so they just found a workaround to make it happen.
Yes.
Tommy the Treat 01 said, no guaranteed entries comes at a price of teams unwilling to risk one of their cars bumping out another one of their cars.
I mean, that goes back to your point about not being welcome to Indy only, because they wouldn't worry about bumping each other's cars, right?
Jay Lacey 16 said, bump day brings no value to the current 500. You enjoy the 500, and like every year prior, never say, man, if only there was bumping, that 500 would have been better. Bring storylines to qualifying weekend, but that's it. But we still talk about these stories.
Indy 500 is not just race day.
No.
To some people, it is. And that's fine. But
to a lot of us, it's the full month.
It's the entire, it used to be a month, right? But now it's 2
But it's still the full month.
Yeah, but it's, in terms of on track.
Yes. It's 2 weeks. Not.
And it's everything. It's we talk about the first car being on track on the first practice never wins the race, right? We're so focused from the jump about everything. And, oh my gosh, this person's slow on Tuesday. What's it mean as qualifying is just 3-4 days away? They got to make the race. Such and such puts it in the wall on Wednesday. They got a quick rebuild. What about Fast Friday? If they have issues, what's it mean going into qualifying? All of those storylines are moot with just 33 cars. It absolutely affects the event. Does it affect race day? No. But this event is bigger than race day.
The 500 is more than race day.
Absolutely.
As are all these events on the schedule. But to be fair,
but more so
the 500 and Long Beach too, for that matter. Mini Triceratops said it needs to be at least 35. 34 is just lame. Having the odd man out kind of sucks. Yeah, we kind of agree there. Toviani 1996 said the problem is that the Indy 500 is being boycotted by other series that have scheduled races on the same date. There are drivers who would like to participate but can't. I agree that the series lacks commitment, perhaps by funding a 34th car or subsidizing a team to participate. That I could get behind if you want to create bumping, but that would not ever happen. They're not gonna eat their own here. This from Real Matt in Indy said, I've been a fan since my first 583. I don't care. I just want 33 in a good race. But we're always going to get 33. I mean, that's the thing.
We're always, but look, I appreciate the input. I get it. Mm-hmm. I do feel like it's in the minority of people.
This from Apex to Asphalt IE said, not many people have $2 million to throw away for a one-off race, no matter how prestigious it is. At the best of times, in this economic period, number of potential one-off entries dries up considerably. But this period has gone on 15 years.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you could blame the economy, 2012, 2013, 2014-ish, and you could blame the economy, 21 or 2020, 21, 22, but like we've essentially had an entire 15-year period where we had 36 entries, one time, 35, I think twice, and 34 a handful of other times.
The longer
it shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah, and the longer it goes, I think we're seeing that with some of the comments, then the more normal it is.
And then this from Greg, why does it matter? Yes, you should have 34. Penske in 95, Ray Hall in the last 2 years. Exactly our point. It's got to be more challenging, and we'll have more thoughts on bumping in tweets of the week as well.
I do feel like one of the beauties of the Indianapolis 500 is so many people love it for so many different things in so many different ways. But I do think there is a sizable portion of the IndyCar in general fan base that values bumping at the Indianapolis 500. And if it's not an aspect of the 500, then you lose a significant part of the event.
Dab for Dale said, series should always come before team. If it doesn't, a team owner shouldn't own the series. Well, that's the problem.
I mean, ideally, yes, but just nobody else wanted to buy it other than Liberty Media, I guess. So, yeah, in a perfect world, maybe Liberty Media owns the series, and then a lot of these things happen. But this is a big deal, but I won't overlook the big things that Roger Penske has done for this series as well.
And Poet Shevchenko with this, back before bumping came back, I had to have a bunch of awkward conversations with people who weren't familiar with IndyCar about why there was so much practice time. Again, we're just blowing money here if we're only going to have 33 entries.
And let's take Ganassi, for example, right? 3 cars at the 500. If Alex Palou and Scott Dixon go out Tuesday and they're like, yeah, we feel really good. Like we're locked in. Maybe they go into Wednesday and be like dialed in. Then what's the incentive to go out Thursday? I mean, that's the thing. Is
if we had a new car, this would be different.
Yes, I think 2028 is different in terms of track time. I'm also concerned, like I mentioned earlier, about getting to 33 cars even, let alone bumping in 2028 with a new chassis. But I'm just saying, if you're locked in Tuesday and Wednesday, what's the point of going out Thursday? And then Friday, okay, we're faster, run some qualifying sims, and then, okay, we're locked in. We're definitely going to be in the Fast 12 on coming out of Saturday, so we're just going to take the rest of Friday off. Like, you're affecting track time, in my opinion, significantly.
This from Jeremy from HBG, shifting gears. Someone on Reddit will still complain you were too negative even with no audio with our missed episode.
Very true.
I think we got most of the passionate thoughts out again this week that we missed last week. And even some new thoughts. So I think that's good.
More clarity with lack of bumping, right?
Yes.
Still some questions last week.
And unfortunately, reframed the conversation to a more negative one. Last week was more optimistic.
Yes.
And then a couple thoughts. We'll get to this a bit later on, but there was an update in international races, and I'm just going to read the tweets. We'll talk about it in our mailbag. In fact, we'll probably lead with that. This from Courtney Mom2X over 2002, who also sent us a link, an interview to Chris Pook, who's on the Dinner with Racers podcast talking about Long Beach. You need to check that out. But said, Mark Miles does realize April Fool's Day was at the time 11 days ago. And then this from Andrew does not. Nice username. Nah, bro, it'll work this time. The Fell For It Again award gif. Again, we'll get to the story on that.
Miles has a reputation, doesn't he? And
yes.
It's not a good one.
And then finally, additional thoughts from Snarky Moose. That's 2000_Moose. This is talking about the exclusivity rants that we had in a couple episodes ago. About those exclusivity rants, which major league sport does not have some sort of exclusivity? Baseball, NFL, golf. Maybe you can make a case for the U.S. Open, maybe. You can't start a youth travel team without jumping through all kinds of hoops. All this can be condensed down to one word, insurance. That leads to eligibility rules and requirements and fees. Can't run anything these days without liability insurance. I know I've been sued over a sad youth sports incident. We were insured. IMS sets a standard, like complete 100 laps with 2 pit stops in a specified time, say 107% of the field average for 100 green laps and 2 pit stops the previous year. Interested cars show up at IMS the week before the GP. They achieve the standard. They can compete. Do that. Just set an opportunity for them to even compete. That's the problem. They don't even have the opportunity right now as it is because it's so closed off.
As you mentioned, the trifecta, right? You need a team, you need an engine lease, you need a chassis.
And that's to say,
that doesn't say anything about
a sponsor or driver,
right? Yeah. So there's a lot more than 3, but
you can definitely find the driver. It's finding the sponsor that could be a challenge.
In 2 years, it becomes exponentially more difficult for both engines and chassis because you can bet that Chevy and Honda are not going to want to stretch themselves too far the first year of a new engine.
No, certainly not. That's why a third OEM to make it where you have a minimum of 12, and maybe IndyCar needs to put in the rule book, hey, you must supply at least a minimum of 12 engines for the Indy 500. The problem is you set that, and then you've set the precedent where you're only going to have 36 entries.
I'll take 36 entries all day long.
Well, I would as well, but then you have a cap where if an OEM says, well, we want to do more than that, well I'm not going to spend the money.
I would say minimum 12.
But even then that would be the cap because they would never go over that because they don't want to spend more than that.
But I mean, I think it would be. We're never getting back to 40. So my thing is 36 I'd be over the moon with. I mean, right now I'd take 34 at this point.
Yes, I would as well.
And I have been vocal about saying if 34 show up, just start them all. I've changed my mind.
Funny how that works. That's the mailbag. Let's get to news and notes, and let's talk the latest on international races in IndyCar and a future schedule update as well. So news broke late last week that Mark Miles visited the Guyana racetrack, which we had talked about this, I think, before.
Named after Ayrton Senna.
Yes. This is in Brazil to evaluate a possible race. Now, this from Formula_A01, boots on the ground, I think, it said, if this actually happens, which I find unlikely since they've been promising a race outside the U.S. for 5 years. Hey, they've been promising it for 15, 20. They'll only need to resurface the asphalt and fix the track's drainage and also avoid running in the summer just as a precaution.
Now, I believe it's been resurfaced for MotoGP, correct?
Yes, but then I guess the track bits were coming up with MotoGP. So more update on this Brazil. I mean, this seems like a legitimate possibility. Now, we've gone down the road with this in Argentina a couple of years ago, Mexico City, past couple of years, and then even going back a decade as well. But look, Brazil, here's the key thing from Joey Barnes' article on, this is Olivia Nogueira on motorsport.com. Right, this key sentence says a lot. Executives from BAN, the broadcaster that holds the rights to air the races in Brazil, also participated in the meeting. To me, that says a lot because they could potentially be the promoter or like the liaison with IndyCar to really get things in motion. I think having the TV partner excited says a lot. And I think there's a real possibility of this happening.
I believe it when I see it.
They already hosted MotoGP. They want to host IndyCar as soon as 27. I don't know if that will happen. The good thing is we already have a track, right? I don't think it needs a lot of changes for IndyCar. If it can host MotoGP, it can definitely host IndyCar.
Well, and get the team owners on board.
Yes. So, and obviously they want to strike while the iron's hot. Well, they have a driver in the series, Band, which is popular, covers it. I mean, I'm all for a race in Brazil and Argentina and Mexico and Japan and Australia, but I mean, the financials all have to be worked out. And speaking of races in some of those markets, let's talk about that because Marshall Pruitt had a story on racer.com this week talking about almost all those markets. I think sans Australia, which another track or another country where IndyCar has flirted with in the last 5 or so years. But first off, they want to find a regular home for racing in the Northeast. Now, Pruitt didn't mention Pocono as a race in the Northeast. He said Watkins Glen in 2017. I would include Pocono in the Northeast, and that was as recent as 2019.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, again, we don't know if there's a lack of interest from Pocono to host IndyCar. Is IndyCar not interested in going to Pocono?
I think it's the latter.
Because of the tragedies that happened there. To me, go back to Pocono. I think it's an easy solution to a region where you don't have a race.
Also, they didn't have the aero screen when they raced at Pocono previously. So Other possibilities, so they want to create more big events like Arlington, Washington, D.C. Marshall Pruitt mentioned several tracks. Watkins Glen mentioned in the Northeast as, could that be a possibility? But IndyCar teaming up with NASCAR. But NASCAR is running there. It's moving forward. It's going to be the same weekend where the Indy GP is held in May, so that doesn't work. IMSA races at Watkins Glen in June. Maybe that could be a tie-in together. You look at other possibilities. Richmond, which was on the 2020 schedule and was off due to COVID.
Was kind of disappointed that New Hampshire wasn't mentioned.
Yeah.
Maybe there's just no interest there.
And then Denver Street Race, which has been talked about for a few years. Pruitt says 2028 earliest to look for Denver to join the calendar. Mexico, unfortunately, it's pretty much cooled completely. As I will continue to say, if Pato O'Ward wins the Indy 500, that will change that conversation in a heartbeat. And then,
Motegi was
Motegi. Unfortunately, this would be the road course. Now, I've heard mixed stuff. He says that the track is unusable due to the earthquake in terms of the oval, but I've read elsewhere that that's not true. They've held demonstration runs and whatnot. So,
well, is it okay for demonstration runs, but maybe not for a race? I don't know.
Maybe, but this is the key here. Seeking the necessary support from Japan's governmental agencies and the increasing number of Japanese sponsors in IndyCar, including NTT, to rally behind a return towards the end of the decade with new cars and motors has been a passion project for the American arm of the Honda brand. So, nothing to report, but conversations ongoing.
A full-time Japanese driver in the series would, I think, help that push.
Yes, and I think that could be coming in 2027 with Kaku Ota as we continue to hype up. That's the name to know for the future. And then he also provides an update on Brazil as well. Strongest likelihood to develop into something, the Autodromo Internacional Ayrton Senna Road Course, city of Goiânia in the state of Goiás. I don't know how to say these Brazilian terms. They repaved the road course, a $10 million renovation ahead of MotoGP's return this year, but a lot of progress would have to happen for 2027. So I guess the real thing is, what new races do we even see in 2027? Because you look at 2028 and it's like, okay, you could have Brazil, you could have Denver. Like, there are a lot of options for 2028. What's new in 2027, if anything?
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing anything definite for 2027. And IndyCar is not going to go from 17, 18 races to 20 races in one season, or 21 races. So there's not going to. They're going to ease it in. So actually, my most likely is Watkins Glen with NASCAR, because that's a Fox race. I think it's the last Fox race before they turn things over to whoever's next. And I could see Fox saying, okay, we're going to do that. We're going to do Phoenix, and we're going to do Watkins Glen, and partner them up and do a Saturday, Sunday there. That's my guess right now. But I also think it's at this point likely we don't have any new races next year. Or we could be still back to 17 next year, in my opinion.
For sure. So that's a look at international races, one of our favorite topics.
Or, add one next year and get rid of Milwaukee's doubleheader, and we're still at 17. I mean, I think that's growth in terms of less races, but another market.
I would agree as well. I mean, I don't like doubleheaders.
Me neither.
I don't think it's necessary in this day and age. We don't want that to happen. Okay. Latest from the MarshallPruittRacer.com mailbag. The new potential buyers of Prema want charters. So that's really the only notable thing out of the mailbag this week. But I think IndyCar really play themselves. If Prema has charters, I think they're still on the grid. I still think they find a way to at least show up through the Indy 500.
Definitely more financial incentive. And also in that response to Marshall Pruitt pointing out, the longer they go without a buyer, the more difficult it gets, because in a year and a half, all of their chassis, of which I think they have 5,
wow,
are
they're useless.
They're useless. So who's going to spend all that money for all that equipment that in 18 months or less, a lot of it is obsolete? And that's a legitimate question and concern.
Other changes, talking about the future car and whatnot. Testing of the 2028 chassis will be carried out with the current motor. The series continues to work with Honda and Chevy on finalizing the new engine regulations. Something tells me this is being delayed because they're still trying to court a third OEM.
It's not ideal, but not altogether surprising considering, and I think part of it was Honda and Chevy dragging their feet and waiting so long to commit to the series long term. And so in this respect, I really don't have much of an issue with the series. They're doing the best they can. They had to develop that chassis, right? Which is ongoing. So as long as they can get it in the car, hopefully by the end of next year, that'd be good.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have testing happen this year, I think, to feel confident that everything's going to work together, because they also are going to have a new energy recovery system, the replacing the current hybrid, that new ERS system not going to be ready for initial testing as well. So Pruitt says they're going to have a large block of ballast placed in the bell housings to replicate the hybrid's weight during these tests. Whatever works to make it happen.
Get the thing on track.
For sure. I think that's the key.
Do we see it next month?
I hope so. I don't know, but I hope
renderings, or we see an actual car?
I
would like him to just skip renderings and show me the car.
That would be fine, because we still haven't seen renderings at this point.
Yeah. Just show up with the car sitting out, and maybe that will make me tune in to a Thursday practice that means nothing.
We have a change for single car Firestone Fast 6 qualifying on the remaining street circuits. Each driver will run one solo lap, putting a greater challenge. They can also pick when they go, so it's not going to necessarily go in reverse order. That's the other change there.
Well, how do you decide? Oh, I guess first gets decided first, and second.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Elsewhere, Scott McLaughlin's Indy 500 entry, the Pennzoil car, going to have some added stars and stripes on it for the Indy 500. Cool look there for 2026. IndyCar hired a veteran race engineer and team manager Mike O'Gara away from Chip Ganassi Racing as the new VP of Competition Race Engineering. So that replaces Bill Pappas, who was in that role. Pappas back with Dale Coyne Racing, right?
Yeah.
So there's an update there. Colton Herta is going to make his F1 debut in the upcoming FP1 session with Cadillac F1 at Barcelona. So congrats to Colton. Obviously unable to compete in the Indy 500, but going to be racing in the U.S. in the month of May. Not once, but twice.
How about that?
AJ Foyt Legacy. So we had Art Garner on.
We did.
Was that last summer?
Yeah, talk about Volume 1.
Yes, Volume 1. Well, now Volume 2, which is AJ Foyt Legacy, soon be available on the press, available to pre-order at Octane Press. Forward by Tony Stewart. It includes nearly 100 photos, many from the family archives, and many have never been seen before. OctanePress.com. That's where you can get info on pre-ordering that book. So that's very cool. Excited to check that out. The Indy 500 signage up on the JW Marriott. Jack Harvey participating with Doug Bowles in that and laying the final pieces. Always a sign that May is around the corner. We have Roger Penske. I didn't understand this at all, but Penske urged the FCC to protect broadcast television's role in delivering major sports. You have, remember the DOJ looking into the NFL, moving a lot of games, to streaming away from broadcast TV, and that becoming a more hot button issue in sports due to what is the Sports Broadcasting Act, which was signed in the 60s.
Yeah, I don't know.
So they're kind of reviewing that.
The NFL to not, whatever. But hey, IndyCar's got all their races on network. So what do we?
Yeah, we don't have anything to complain about currently, at least
in that respect.
And someone asked a question, did Amazon can the Kyle Larson Indy 500 documentary? And Kelly Crandall, who covers NASCAR for Racer, said it's still in production. There was not a release date other than to say 2026. So something to look out for.
Just like the video game, second half of 2026.
Yes.
This whole 6-month window.
And then IMS posted this. I need to watch the video, but they found the original plans for IMS.
I watched that.
Was it cool?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a short clip. Doug Bowles just said he randomly opened a drawer and that was in there. I kind of doubt that. But it was like the original, what was it, 5 Mile oval it was going to be. Uh-huh. And the original designs also had a road course.
Yes.
Design. So, yeah, it was pretty cool. It was kind of short. I was hoping for more detail, but it was pretty cool to see those.
Elsewhere on the mailbag, as we get close to wrapping up, we have, I think, one other thing left, and this is fun. Current odds to win the Indy 500. This is from a few days ago. I'm sure we've had a few shifts. Plo the favorite, plus 450. Newgarden, plus 550. Award, plus 650. Malukas, plus 800. McLaughlin, plus 1,000. Kirkwood, plus 1,000. Rasmussen, plus 1,200. Erickson, plus 1,400. Scott Dixon, plus 1,500. You're looking for value. Will Power, plus 1,600. Sato, plus 1,800. Rossi, plus 1,800.
Where's Elio?
Elio is way down. Let's see. Elio is plus 2,500.
I mean, that seems like a no-brainer. Put a couple bucks on that, right?
For some peak value. All right. Anything that we missed?
No, I'm sure we made some people perturbed today, but sometimes that's what we set out to do.
Yes. It's
not as perturbed as we were last week when we didn't have a show.
Yeah, I was pretty stunned. So I'll make sure and verify this week.
It happens.
It's not an issue. Tweets of the week time, and first from David Malukas. Someone sent this to David, and it was a meme is like, when you randomly remember that bicycle accident that genuinely traumatized you, and he posted a smiley face.
Funny. Yes. If you don't know, look it up.
This from Christopher DeHard, talking about his story on Front Stretch about, bump day. He said, there should be consequences for not being fast enough to make the Indy 500. It's one of the few marquee races in the world where spots are not guaranteed. Bumping matters. Callum Ilott, I should write a book one day, a short one, but still a book. This from...
You ever think he'll be able to tell...
Probably not.
Premise story.
Probably not, unfortunately. And then this from Chad, _15. The owners will get all their current cars locked in. They are thrilled with 33. And then he also added this. Qualifying for the Indy 500 in itself is a massive accomplishment and should be treated as such. It's not a charity event where signups should get you a participation trophy. Seems disrespectful to those who have risked it all to qualify 34 greater than 33. And then finally, this from Racer's account. No super clipping, no tire saving, no artificial overtakes, no battery, just straight wheel-to-wheel racing, and it's the Weenie 500.
You can't beat it. Racing at its purest form. And can't wait for round 2 this May.
Absolutely. And now we get to redo our random split air driver of the week.
We do, and he's your favorite Dutch driver, race car driver of all time, Mr. Charles Zwolsman Jr. I know you're a big Max Verstappen fan, but, we got to talk about Charles Zwolsman Jr. Started racing in go-karts, and he went into Formula Ford, Formula Renault, Formula 3. He made his debut in Toyota Atlantics with Condor Motorsports, and he went on to win 3 races that season, clinched the championship over rivals Thomas Kasmitz, former Random Split Era Driver of the Week, and Catherine Legg, who've talked about being potentially the 33rd entry for this year's Indianapolis 500. He then made his Champ Car debut in 2005, the same year he won the Atlantics Championship, and he debuted at Mexico City, the last race of that season for Champ Car, the 2005 Gran Premio Telmex Tecate Grand Prix, I guess. I don't know. And finished 13th. He then did the entire season with Conquest Racing in 2006, the entire season. His best finishes of 7th at Road America and Surfers Paradise. He then ended his Champ Car career where he ended it at the 2006 race at Mexico City, finished 11th. Overall finished 13th in that season, with a low finish of 15th, which I think like 15 cars were in that that season with Champ Car or something. So it wasn't as impressive as it sounds. He then went on and did the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
With some notable names. Narain Karthikeyan was a one-time F1 driver, I think, with Force India, if I'm not mistaken. And then Andre Lauder, an outstanding sports car driver, one of the greats out there in sports cars.
I think it was with Jordan, wasn't he?
Let's see. I'm actually pulling it up.
I don't know if he was ever with Force India.
F1 results. He was not. You're right.
Even though
Jordan in 2005, and then ran in 2011 with Hispania Racing F1. I don't remember that team. And then HRT F1, and then 2012 HRT F1. I don't really remember that team. Oh, that was formerly known as Campos Meta 1. I don't remember that team at all.
Meaning, maybe for good reason.
Yeah.
But, when we talk about famous or infamous random split era drivers of the week with criminal records, Charles Wolfsman Jr. was at least initially with that. He was charged in the Netherlands with involvement in money laundering in 2011. According to prosecutors, he financed his racing career with the proceeds of the criminal activities of his father, Charles Wolfsman Sr., who was also a sports car driver in the 80s and 90s. Prosecution asked for 240 hours of community service, a 15-month suspended prison sentence, and a $20,000 euro fine. Zolzman Jr. denied all the charges. He proceeded to fight the allegations, and after some major investors and sponsors helped him out with the case, he was acquitted in 2013 and cleared of all charges in 2016. So Charles Wolfsman Jr., criminal record wiped from the books, couldn't prove that he was laundering money. Dad sounds like a winner, though. He did, Charles Wolfsman Jr., win the Toyota Atlantic 2005 championship. He then raced for Conquest Racing in 2006 and Team Australia 2005. 15 races overall in Champ Car over 2 years. Best finish of 7th twice. Charles Wolfsman Jr., this week's Random Split Era Driver of the Week.
All right, that does it for this episode. We'll be back next week to recap the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. For Justin Kinney, I'm Caleb Batch. This has been another edition of New Track Record Podcast.